So is opposition to the ban rooted in sexism, or is there a valid concern about whether women should be on the front lines of combat? Well, let's ask our panel on that issue. Joining me now is the author of Race to Save America, the CEO of VetCom, Kate Monroe, also here, Army veteran, and the National Operation Coordinator with Operation Free Nation, Allie Legg. Welcome to you both. Allie, I want to start with you. Where do you stand on this notion that women need to be drafted into the military?
I stand with our Republicans that are pushing back against this. I mean, honestly, this is perfect messaging for Republicans. If you want to go to war, vote Democrat. This is absolutely ridiculous, the fact that they think that women should join the draft. We have plenty of men that are willing to join in the first place, and plenty of men that we can, have them join the draft in the first place. Men, we know that they fight a whole lot different than we do. They have bigger bodies than we do. There's a lot of differences between men and women.
Now, Kate, what Allie just said triggered just about everybody on the left, because they're saying there really are no differences, that women can do the same thing the men can do.
Well, they absolutely can't. I'm 5'9", 160 pounds. I'm one of the most fit 45-year-olds that I know. And I can tell you, when I was 19 and 20 years old, when I was in, as fit as I was, as athletic as I was, I'm even the average size for a male in our country. It was still very difficult in the Marine Corps to carry that pack, the rifle, the Kevlar helmet, the flak jacket, and make it all the way through. So that's something I chose to do. I wanted to be in the service. Not that many young women want to be in the service. That is not the path that they have outlined for themselves. There's plenty of men in our country that could be drafted, but the issue isn't really that you want to draft women. The issue is you're about to go to war in the middle of a recruiting crisis that you designed for yourself with all of your wokeism, and you've never pivoted and done anything to entice these young men and women to get in. You need a complete revamp of your recruiting process is the actual issue, and lack of patriotism.
Well, and there's two things
Elliot,
to that, too. I kind of want to just jump in there real quick. Two things to that. Like, Democrats are doing what they do best, right? They're not focusing on the issue. Instead of them focusing on low recruitment and low retention rates because they've implemented DEI, they're doing what they do best, and that's forcing things. They're forcing a mandate for women to join the draft. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So Kate, I don't want to appear to be sexist here. I'm the guy here in the bunch, but I got a problem. I have a big problem with sending women to the front lines of a war. Does that make me a bad person, a bad guy?
No, I would not send women to the front lines. In most cases, women are not technically sent to the front line now. They may be frontline adjacent. They may be supporting frontline operations. But the issue is, and I've told many young men this, I said, if a draft does come because we get the wrong party in and we do go to war, then you need to maybe enlist before the draft and choose your job. Because if you do not get into the military with your job choice in place, you will be cannon fodder. You will be part of the front line. You will be part of the war machine. And we cannot afford as a nation for our young women especially to be drafted. It goes everything against what we stand for as a nation.
And Allie, again, the point of the military is not to social engineer. It's to blow things up and kill the enemy. Am I wrong here?
No, you're absolutely correct. And if you're going to draft 18 to 26-year-olds that are currently in college right now that are Hamas supporters and terrorist supporters and hate each other, what do you think is really going to happen? Do you think the enemy is going to be afraid, or do you think, people that are actually serving in our military that want to serve, that have joined voluntarily, do you think that there's going to be a problem? I think that is going to cause a major issue if we draft 18 to 26-year-olds that are currently at these college campuses that are implementing DEI and woke ideologies.
Allie brings up a good point here, Kate, because we started out the show with what happened over at the HQ there at UNC Chapel Hill. I mean, these public universities are becoming breeding ground not only for hate, but very dangerous people who could possibly be radicalized on our university campuses.
I totally agree with that. I mean, you see this here on what's going on college campuses. Well, in the military, they have their own brand of wokeism going on. They're doing drag shows. The Navy's doing drag shows on their ships. Our young men and women are lost. we have, gone far and away from the God-centered nation that we used to be. And when things like that happen, it's not a wonder that you have all this wokeism, all this hatred, all of this apathy going on in our nation. I think if these young men and women actually went and served in the military, they have a very different respect for our country, our national security, and our sovereignty as a nation.
Allie, for me, I think we crossed the Rubicon when the Air Force announced they were redesigning the Air Force suits, the pilot suits for women who might be pregnant, pilots who might be pregnant. And I'm wondering, are we sending pregnant women into war now? Are they going to have baby seats there in the cockpit with them? It's just simply outrageous.
It is 1,000%. And if we're sending women to war, especially if it's 18 to 26-year-olds, that's the block where most women are ready to have babies. And if we're sending both parents to war, both men and women, one, we're putting more women in harm's way because, rape is very prevalent in a lot of these situations. And a lot of times it gets swept under the rug. I've personally witnessed this while I was in the military. You have, a private or some lower enlisted that experiences assault, and it gets swept under the rug by the commander, and it never gets to see the light of day. And so we're doing not only that putting more women in harm's way, but we're also, who's watching these children? Will they become government children of the government? Is that the goal? Our birth rate is already almost below 2%.
It's a fair point, and to that point, we're looking at least a decade of declining recruitment numbers. The Army almost entirely attributable to a significant drop in male recruiting. Female enlistments have actually remained relatively flat. This is according to data that we reviewed by military.com. So why is it, Kate, why do you think recruitment is actually stronger with women now? What does that say about the culture that they're focusing on women instead of men?
Well, I think the culture is more focused on women being empowered to be men. It's not a big surprise that you see some of these young women trying to adopt the features of men. The real issue is that we have a low recruiting on the male side. And part of that is the male who would like to go into the military, probably coming from somewhere in the middle of the country. I came from a little tiny town in Northern California. They're looking for patriotism, and you have swapped patriotism for wokeism. So those kids, they don't want to go in. They're looking for something else. In fact, a lot of kids who would have gone in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard are now going in the Marine Corps because we've held, some standard of our esprit de corps. But these kids, if they smoke weed, as part of that weed culture, they can't get in the military. The physical fitness is not there. We probably need to do something joint effort, maybe with like F-45. We need to get these young men and women into enough shape where they can actually get into the military. During COVID, you let out a ton of people who wouldn't take the vaccine. You wonder why you have a recruiting crisis. If we would incentivize them back into the service and give them a bonus to re-enlist, if you would stop taxing military retirement, you could keep these people in longer, and you wouldn't have such a recruiting crisis. It's not that difficult to fix if you're trying to fix it.
All right, ladies, we're going to have to leave it there. I do want to say this before we head out, just as a conciliatory note here. The pregnant Air Force pilots, one advantage, they could drop the dirty diapers on the enemy, have a few dirty bombs there, if you're going to have the baby in the back seat. So, ladies, thank you. Allie, Kate, appreciate it.
Have a great night.
All right, coming up.